talking all things theatre and events.
I've also worked for artists such as Black Sabbath, Metallica, Drake.
Been part of some amazing shows and worked with some amazing people.
Nothing that replaces that feeling of being in a gig.
The Stage Is Yours podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Stage Is Yours podcast. I'm your host Cal Graham, joined as always by producer Dan, and we're going to be talking all things theatre and events. So today on the podcast we're joined by Grace Gallagher and Rachael Smart from Ugly Bucket Theatre. We talk all things Ugly Bucket, from their shows to their style of theatre and the topics that they tackle with their productions. Their shows are rarely sophisticated, often outrageous and always honest. Ugly Bucket, the stage is yours. Hello and welcome to the Stage Is Yours podcast. Today we're joined by Grace and Rachael from Ugly Bucket. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Grand.
How are you?
So
Sorry.
I'm all right, thank you. I am all right. Slightly odd times, but so Ugly Bucket Theatre, probably arguably one of the most random names I think I've ever heard. Not gonna lie. Let's talk about the formation. Where does Ugly Bucket come from you, for you guys? And obviously a little bit about yourselves as well. Just kind of set the scene, really.
Okay, setting the scene. So Ugly Bucket was formed. We both live in Liverpool, and we both went to John Moores University and did a drama degree. Never did any clowning at uni or anything like that, and then left uni and really struggled with graduating and just that kind of being thrown into real life. And we all felt like it was a bit we weren't prepared for it. And we didn't feel like there was any warning about how it might feel. And so then us and a group of friends, and it was a way of just keeping ourselves sane really, was we would meet once a week, sneaking into the old drama studio because it was a code back then, and now it's a key card, which is just of course, but it used to be a code that we used to know. So we used to sneak in when we knew it wasn't being used in the evenings, and we just did that one night a week for about probably 6 months or something, while we just put together a kind of physical clowning techno verbatim show called Ghost Junior Clues, and that was all about postgraduate depression. So we spoke to loads of graduates and recorded interviews with them and used that as kind of stimulus to create this kind of strange style, which I think is now quite recognisably Ugly Bucket. And I think we've really been able to develop that over the past couple of years and figure out kind of what we're good at. And Ghost Junior Clues was a complete snowball. It was a complete snowball where the first time we did it, we begged the university, please let us just put it on in one of the spaces for one night, and we charged £1. It was literally, we charged £1 for people to come in, and then I think it was free for students. So if you weren't a student, it was free, and then it was £1 for everyone else. And from that point on, yeah, definitely just a bit of a snowball effect. So we did the show again and again, and we went and improved it and did it again at we did it in the back of a bar once, just in this little room, I can't remember what the name is for the type of room, you know what I mean, a party room. Did it in the back of a bar, and then it got selected for NSDF, so we got it was selected for National Student Drama Festival, which was massive for us. And it really found its home at NSDF, and we won all these awards, and we had this relationship with Slung Low from it, and that was just huge for us. That was a massive tipping point as a company, because it was the first time that we were given money, because we won this prize, and they gave us some money to make other stuff. So yeah, and then it's the past 2.5 years has just been it is non-stop. So from Ghost Junior Clues, and I don't know, yeah, and then Rachael could probably talk about Two Clowns and stuff, but it has been nuts. You'd think we were like
It's been
10 years old. It's been madness.
Yeah, I think it's kind of gone from like once we kind of established ourselves and got a bit of confidence in what we were doing, then we made Two Climbs One Cup, which really pushed the comedy, and we really went for it with like just being like, let's just make this a really stupid, silly, funny show, because we knew, because like Grace said earlier, that's what we liked and what we were good at. We were like, we can just throw these things that people really take seriously and go, oh, let's talk about, you know, female sex, and it's really important that and we were like, let's just make it stupid. So then we took both of those shows to Edinburgh Fringe, which was just great, and it proper like, that's another one that really challenged us as a company, because we took both shows and just did it alternate days. So it was really nice for us to just like step out constantly. We're constantly just stepping out of our comfort zone, which then kind of brings us to where we are now, in a way, which is Good Grief, where we've taken this topic that we even don't fully understand going into it, and we're like, let's pick away at what grief is and what loss is and what it means to like understand and accept death, and then make that silly and funny. So yeah, that's pretty much where we are now.
I think we've really started to figure out that what our kind of brand, or like what we do, is there's that Ugly Bucket. I feel like if I had to sum it up, it's like Ugly Bucket take topics that are taboo or hard to talk about, and through like techno music and like the most outrageous physical comedy, we kind of like make it accessible because we don't beat around the bush, and because like if you come to a show, you're going to be really, it's going to be really in your face. We're going to really delve into this topic head on, that it kind of desensitizes, or like not desensitizes, it totally disarms that topic, I think. And I think also when you're able to laugh about something, it really opens up those doors of being able to talk about things and spark discussion. So I think that's really what we're all about, yeah, is like channeling that through comedy and through music, and yeah, sparking discussion on social issues.
Obviously, I want to come back onto it a little bit later on in terms of your themes and your topics and that your choices of that. I'd actually quite like to just kind of touch on, you've mentioned it there, your style of your shows and your theatre, and you talk of it being clowning. And I think for some people, they hear the word clown and automatically go to a circus. And for that, so actually, I think I'd be really interested to kind of know how you came about to choose that is your style, and kind of how that really helps with the shows that you create.
I think that clowning, I think you're right, when people hear the word clowning, they definitely think like white face, red nose, circus, juggling, but really to me, I think clowning is so much more of a spectrum, and I think like it's about definitely the way that we use clown. It's about heightening ourselves. So I think that's something that a lot of people use in clowning, is kind of like taking maybe what makes you like either, and a lot of the time it's in people's flaws, and we kind of heighten that and make the comedy out of that. So I think that everybody's clown is totally different. I don't think it necessarily means mime. It doesn't mean like speaking. I just think that it's the way that we present things in a kind of abstract way. And I think really at the heart of it, a clown's job is to make you laugh. And personally, I feel whatever way that clown wants to go about that, that's totally up to them. But that's why I don't think I would ever say like, oh, this is clowning or that's not clowning. And I think sometimes the clown world can be quite, what's the word? Guilty of that, I think, of like putting it into a box. And because there's all these different types of training, especially like training in Paris, and you've got the Lecoq way and you've got the Gaulier way, and these are all total like methods, and they're amazing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that clown is one thing. And so I think that that's something that Ugly Bucket definitely is a different type, in fact, that it's not subtle. Like I think it's not subtle, and it's totally outrageous, and I think it's more techno-based modern style. But it's a really funny question to ask, because like to me clowning is so vast that it's like we are one style that we've figured out, and this is our way,
and it's just about taking what works. So when we put certain bits with different verbatim, so when we have a certain type of interview, you really know full well you're not going to use the same style of clowning that we did earlier in the show, because this bit's really sensitive, so actually we're going to handle this in a totally different way. So we always talk about whatever elements work for us, because that's all you should do as artists anyway, is just take what works for you. That's where we don't like to stick to rules. It's like, understand what it is, and then we can go, oh yeah, but I don't like doing that, so that actually, let's use that instead. Whereas like Grace said, I think it's quite easy if you brand things as this is clowning, they go, oh, so it must be this, because if you ask one person, they'll have a set of 5 rules. Someone else will go, clowning is about these really 2 important 2 rules. So it's
really odd. But I think to us, obviously the laughter, I think that's totally universal, and that's something that everybody understands about clowning, is it's about laughter and it's about audience. So like all Ugly Bucket shows, totally the audience is definitely, we're totally relying on an audience, and like without an audience our shows just don't exist, or it just can't happen. And like that relationship is something that we've really been, clowning really forces you to like experiment with that and listen. It's like totally listening, and that's why I think each show can be totally different based on how that audience are reacting that night. And I think just like that's a really great skill to have. I think that's why so many people will like do clowning as a skill, even if they don't do it in the show. But I think that like all actors, and just as a company in general, doing like clowning workshops and things like that, it totally teaches you to listen to each other, listen to the audience, and to definitely swallow your pride. I think like you have to swallow your pride and understand that whether you think it's the funniest thing in the world, if there's no laughter, it's not, and you've just got to let it go and try something new. So I think that's been really interesting, and it's really strange to learn, but I think it's definitely totally changed how we are as a company and how we perform, in the fact that we will just try anything, and we're like totally open to whatever it takes.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting to kind of hear that. I mean, I work in the industry in terms of that, obviously, but in terms of hearing that there is such a depth to what clowning is. And like I said, for a lot of people, it's that stereotypical image of a clown in a circus that is very, can be difficult to get away from, because obviously it is very iconic. And but I think
it's like the lines are totally, but sometimes I walk around in life and I might see something happen in the street and I'm like, God, that's good clowning. But I think it's like when you start to like open up those walls, then you'll see so much. And there's times where I watch something and I go, oh, is that clowning? I'm not sure. I don't know. I quite like that I don't know. Probably it is clowning because I don't know. I think as long as it's challenging, I think clowning is all about challenging, and whatever you are challenging, I almost think the fact that the clown world are so serious about what is and what isn't clowning, that's clowning. That's hilarious. Why do clowns care so much about what clowning is? Because it's literally clowning. It's totally like, it's such an absurd, funny world. And I think, yeah, as long as you're challenging and questioning and pushing boundaries, to me, I probably go, oh, I think that might be clowning, but it might not be to another person. And I think that's great. That's clowning. Everything's clowning. In my world, I'm like, God, everything is clowning. Salt and pepper shakers, and I'm like, God, brilliant clowning.
Brilliant.
But yeah, so I think it's totally, yeah, like you said, it's the depth of it is like, it's totally not one thing. And I think when
people know the one thing, most people know the one.
Yeah.
And there's like loads.
Yeah.
absolutely. So that kind of brings me on to the next little bit. You mentioned, then you were just chatting about that for you guys, your audience interaction is even more important than anything else within your shows. So obviously the last few months has been massively difficult for everyone. How have you guys managed to adapt? Have you kind of managed to find ways to still be able to create, put things out there for your audience? How's it kind of affected you guys, really?
So originally we were kind of touring, and then obviously they all just started getting cancelled. We were like, oh, wait a second, this is serious. And then we kind of went into like a bit of a shutdown mode, like where we were just like, no, we're not doing anything, we're not trying to do anything. Let's just stop because everyone needs to stop and this is weird and loads of people are dying. And then it just kind of, we got to a point where then we started getting annoyed because everyone was posting about how productive they were being and how creative they were being and all these new skills that they were learning. So then we started being like, should we be doing that? I'm annoyed. No, I don't want to be doing that. Why can't we all just have a day off? Why can't we all just stop for a day? So then Home in Manchester released this like a commission like application thing, and it was just one of those weird moments where me and Grace just kind of sat there because me and Grace lived together, and we were both like, oh, we could go for this and put something in. And we're like, but what we really passionate about at the minute? Nothing. But then we realized we were actually passionate about not being passionate about it, just being like, can we just stop?
Yeah.
So then made ABC with all the cast. It was such a nice experience because everyone's got to do this weird creative project in lockdown, which is basically all about that extreme of like being creative and being productive, and almost a rebellion against it. We were just like, can we just not stop putting pressure on ourselves? We don't need to be doing all the time.
I think the motive behind ABC was like, what if we made, because it was a film, so we've never done film before, so we made like this short film, and like the whole question, like I think we were asking was like, how far would you go to stay productive? Because it felt like in this area, people are totally like, well, I'm more productive, and here's all the
when
things
people literally give the permission,
and we were thinking
stop,
like, just stop, it's fine. it was just massive. We were like, okay, we'll do a piece where we push it to its literal limits, because that really suited our style. And we like sent out asked people to send us verbatim, where we asked the question, how have you kept busy in lockdown? And then we took all of that verbatim and kind of turned it on its head and twisted it. And when we put it all together, and then like the visual elements was just these people talking about what they were doing, but we just pushed it to its like absolute limit. And then ABC, like, it's funny, but it almost became like a mini horror. Like, it's still out, and you can still go and watch it on the Home website. It's pay what you decide, so you could literally go watch it for free. And I don't even want to say much more about it other than like, it's about 9 minutes long, and when it starts, and by the time you get to the end, you'll have no idea how you got to the point. By the time you get to the end, you just like, I have no idea how we got to this. But it was totally
trolled everyone. Really, we trolled everyone big time because some of the audio was so nice, and we were like, yeah.
People like, you've been knitting, have you? Oh, did you bake cakes, do you? And like our visual is just like nuts. But it was totally new because like you said, we like live and die with an audience, and then doing it for film, especially when some people were just filming alone in lockdown, and it's totally strange, like the weirdest thing ever. And I think like doing a film, it totally closed doors to us in terms of like, it wasn't what we're used to at all, but also the doors that it opened in terms of what we were able to achieve. I think a lot of the time when we create theatre, we're quite guilty of going, well, if it was a film, it would literally snapshot to this, and we try and create that on stage, and it just doesn't work. But in a film, and also the detail that you're able to go into in film. So ABC is absolutely full. You probably have to watch it. Like if you watched it 3 times, you probably see something different every time, of like the detail of what's in the background, the detail of like that thing has flashed up for half a second, and you're only going to see it if you pause it. but that is so exciting to me, and I think that's what's so cool about making a short film, is all like the hidden details, because people might just go back and watch it again. That was totally,
and people
so
did
fun.
it really cool. When it first came out, we were getting messages like, no, is that a hand that just appears, and you're like, oh my god, yeah, it is. It was so fun, just like, yeah, totally playing with it in a different way was really nice. And then following on from that, we then made Hollyblobs, which was street theatre that was in that kind of weird gap in summer when restrictions started getting lifted.
We're sort of allowed to do something, but not really.
We got lucky because we just like fit that slot. We like slotted in, made something, and then restrictions all went back again. But we managed to do it in the time, so I think we've just been super lucky.
It was so lucky, and it was just like, look, everyone could have fun, but we all had to have hand sanitizer, was the vibe. It was very like fun, but be safe. So then we made these like street theatre aliens that basically just explored Liverpool, and it was just fun. It was just really nice to just be like a great time. Like Grace said, we were so lucky with like that little gap, and they just got to have fun, and people got to interact with them. It was really nice.
And we did like Hollyblobs was basically a street troupe where we were these giant, like the costumes, these giant blue ridiculous aliens, but they're on holiday on Earth. So that's the only concept, and the whole thing's improvised. So we probably might go out and we spend about an hour just interacting with the public as these big blue aliens. And the street theatre is so different, and working with the public is totally different, because people love it or they hate it, and I mean like they hate it, and they let you know they hate it. So I feel like you really have to get out your head. If you do street theatre, you have to be fine. You have to be fine if someone doesn't want to play, like that's fine. You just move on to the next thing. But like,
because later you find moments of loveliness, you find so many nice moments, but it is really quite awful when you try it with someone.
I feel like doing that in Liverpool as well. You've got some quite outspoken people in Liverpool.
Oh, yeah.
So I imagine
we have people coming up to us going, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. And it's so mad that sometimes you can tell that, like, especially on the street, people can't handle what they don't understand. And they don't understand it because it's just for fun, and that's all it was. It's just street there. It's for fun. It's just, and people just, what's it advertising? And like, it's not advertising anything. And then people are like, but
just enjoy it. Yeah. Just look at it.
Yeah, just look at it. It's great. Isn't it fun? And obviously people love it, and the people that like get it and they want to come and interact with you, they're the best people. But you will get people that just like don't get it and therefore don't like it, which I just think is sad for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I mean, Dan studied in Liverpool for 3 years, so he absolutely knows the case of that. I was there for a week in February before lockdown and I'm going to describe it as an interesting week touring into Liverpool. It was an interesting week that didn't really stop at any point, to be honest. So that kind of brings me a little bit nicely. Obviously, you guys have just gone back into rehearsal for your latest show. Which obviously we'll talk about a little bit more in the next bit. But I just wanted to know, like, now that you're back into rehearsal, has much changed? Do you feel with everything that's going on, your rehearsal room has feels like a different place? Or
really does. And this isn't from like the COVID point, like sanitizer and distancing. I feel like that's fine, and we've been able to handle that and adapt to that. What is totally different is the fact that for the past 2.5 years, we have never not been in a rush. And I don't know why, but I think just the way the company was going and we were on this trajectory, and like opportunities just kept presenting themselves, we rushed everything that we did.
We never wanted to say no, so we were just constantly going, and like, because the trajectory was there and we were snowballing. But it was like a snowball on a downward hill where we're just chasing it. That's what it felt like all the time. So then this happened, and it's been a mad opportunity for me and Grace to just come together and just go, what is the company structure? How does it work? And actually turn on business minds, which then has a knock-on effect for rehearsal. It's insane.
Even just like the stuff that we've managed to do this time around So like when we've done projects before, if we've got Arts Council funding, it's literally been that like the funding comes through maybe a week already into the rehearsal process. It's just ridiculous, like stupid, over no one but ourselves. For some reason, me and Rachel think that there are like these invisible bosses above us telling us what to do, even though we could just go, it's our company, we don't have to do that. It's like we have this joke where we're like, oh, I don't think we can get that thing in tomorrow, but what am I going to say to the boss? And we're just like looking in a mirror at ourselves, like what they can say. Anyway, but it's like for this project, we like got the arts funding application in early. We weren't going to do it if we didn't get funding, and then when we got the funding, we had like 2-3 months prior to just plan, and we did production meetings, and we hired a lighting designer rather than for Rachael having to direct and do lighting, and we have a stage man, and I cannot even express like the difference it's made to the company in just the fact that we have been able to let job roles go, because I think Rachael will agree with me and say that like when we've made this, built it from the ground up, and we've done every job, with the set is us and that is us. So then letting go was like, at first it was quite tentative and difficult to go, right, I've got to let go of these things and let other people do it. But then the clarity and just the weight lifted, and also people have done it. I'm not a set designer, so then you hire designers in, and they've made a set that is, of course, it's a billion times better than we could have ever imagined or done. But you've just got to let go of it and bring in great minds. And I feel like this project, we've had so many amazing people come and put their spin on stuff, and now Good Grief is just looking to be like such a piece of work that I wasn't even in my mind. Like I'd never thought that we could have reached this level. So the whole process has been so different, and it's only because everything got cancelled and we were forced to take time. And I think it's really taught us to take that time. I don't know why we're in a rush. We're not in a race. I think that's something that we've learned. It felt like we were in a race before with no one but ourselves, and now like taking the time and research and development and slowly figuring things out and have it like, oh gosh, it's been totally different. It's changed everything, I think.
I think that's amazing to hear that for you guys as a company that actually, in a weird way, lockdown and that being forced to take a break. It was a point a guest I did a podcast this afternoon made, that everyone take some time for yourself, look after yourself, and kind of have those breaks in it actually makes when you then get back to doing it, you feel a little bit refreshed.
Yeah.
You feel like you can look at things there, and I'm sure for yourself, the fact that you're not having to worry now about the lighting design, the set design, you can focus on what you want to create. That actually that's.
And also it's I think it's interesting because when you're using other people's skills and proper like drawing from people's expertise, that's where it elevates to a whole other level. Like that you just go, oh, I've always imagined this, but that's within your realm of what you know and what you're good at. So then when someone else comes and goes, oh, did you know this is possible? Then you're like, no, can it? Yeah, you can do it. Wow. It's just so good. And now we value days off, whereas before we didn't give ourselves days off because we were like, no, we can't be the best if we have weekends. What? And then actually you need the weekends to then come back and be good.
And now we really focus on ourselves in like I think before, like I know that I've definitely been guilty of like comparing yourself to other companies or comparing yourself to why aren't we doing that, and like, you know, but I think now we're much better at just like, I think focusing on our company and what we're doing, and are we happy with where we're at? Do we feel like we've done better than that last thing we did? Regardless, like it's not about being like the best or the most or I think it's about do we feel happy as a company with what we're making? And then I think that's been really beneficial to like learn and just start to like tune out the noise, because there's so much of it, and I think you'll just go a bit crazy if you're constantly comparing yourselves to other companies.
Absolutely. I think but that, like I said, it is all great news that you guys have kind of managed to put something out during lockdown, two different things, and then that your new project is in the works as well. Because obviously for a lot of companies, unfortunately, it's kind of been an unfortunate situation that they found themselves in. So moving forward, let's touch on to your themes and your topics for your shows. Obviously, you've got your new show, Good Grief, come in, and your past shows that you've done are all, as you said earlier, touching on what a taboo topics or topics that people don't particularly like to talk about or feel they can't talk about. So let's just kind of go over some of the topics that you guys have addressed already and with your new show as well.
So when we did Boast New Blues, the topic was postgraduate depression. I think it took us a long time to say postgraduate depression when we were making it. I think for a while we're saying, oh, it's about post-university blues, or it's about, and I think because we were quite afraid of the word depression, and we were like, oh gosh, it makes it sound very serious, doesn't it? But really, I think that it is such an unspoken, common issue that just doesn't get the attention that it really needs. So I think Boast New Blues is just all about giving that a platform. And like, I think that we definitely raised that profile, and we definitely brought attention to it, but like, it's still a massive issue because like selling that show to universities was near impossible, like really hard. So you get some universities where you get like a really amazing drama teacher who sees the importance of that and therefore like brings us in, but trying to go to universities who want to sell you a show which basically is about how horrible it can feel to leave uni, they just don't want to know, or that I think unis are like scared. But when we did take it to unis and when we did shows, I think the response that we got was that the fact that people just really appreciate the honesty, and the show isn't a doom and gloom show. It definitely addresses those issues, but I feel like it ends with like the promise and the hope of like that the end of the university is an end, but it's just a new beginning. And I think and even though I feel like to go, oh, it's hard when you leave university, I think of course it is, and I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. I think that's all anyone thinks. But I think when somebody comes in and actually says to you, it is tough, like we've been through it, but look where we are now, I think people just really appreciate that. I think that loads of students really appreciated that. So it was definitely tough when like I think it could have gone to so many more universities or departments, but it was really like trying to flog a dead horse, really. So I don't think it's the end for Boast New Blues, and I think it definitely has its place still. But yeah, we wanted to tour it.
I'd argue even in the current climate, currently my stopgap job is currently working with students, and from a welfare point of view with a lot of them, and obviously in the current climate it's ridiculous. So actually I argue you guys inadvertently might even have something that now is even more relevant than ever before.
Yeah, it's the thing is, it's like Boast New Blues is never going to not be relevant because every single year there's thousands and thousands and thousands of graduates, and everybody goes through the same thing every year. So it just seems a bit outrageous, I think, that it's not being addressed really at all. Yeah.
And then in terms of like then we made 2 Climbs 1 Cup, and that was purely from like, you just have funny chats sometimes, like when you're with the girlies, and we were just, because Grace met Crystal during Hope Street, which was like what I don't know what it's classed as.
It was like a course. I did like a devising course in Liverpool where they basically like set the company, made a show, but I met Crystal, and just like you meet someone and you just gel as performers, and we were like, God, we've got to make a show together. Really,
that just kind of fits, because like Crystal's like majorly in love and just like totally like head over heels. Me and Grace were like single and fed up of it, and we were just like, yeah. and then all, like I said, you just have so many funny chats, and it just makes sense to make a funny show about sex, because honestly some of the stuff, and like when you see 2 Climbs 1 Cup, it's just so ridiculous, some of the stuff that comes out of like what you go through when you're growing up, and
I think
you're getting taught all the wrong things.
The stupidity of the show only reflects the stupidity of what it's like to experience sex education as a female, and the fact that there's so much as a female that you just have to figure out for yourself along the way, especially when it comes to like female masturbation, female orgasm, female pleasure. Like I didn't have an orgasm until I was probably about like 24. Do you know what I mean? It's just ridiculous, and it's like it's just madness, and what we wanted to recreate in a show was that feeling that like I think a lot of people have when they talk about sex, is when someone opens up about something and someone goes, oh, I'm so glad you feel like that, because I feel the exact same way. And that's kind of what the show does in a nutshell. But it's so outrageous, and it was so ridiculous and funny to make. And like there's even been like moments where like after show people have been like, oh, I really loved it, I'd love to see a male version. And we're like, well, you make it. Like yeah, I'd love to see that, but like it's not my journey, and it's not my it's not my perspective. So if someone wants to make it, amazing.
I feel like a man's conversation might not be quite as open as that's
the thing,
and girls, but
this is what we were saying, is like, because yeah, that's the only criticism really that we've got about the show was people wanting a male version. But we said, in what world are me and Grace going to turn up at some guy's house and go, please do tell us about your sex life?
Yeah.
Whereas the way we did those interviews was literally us in our front room with some like chocolate sweets and drinks and stuff, and was just like, let's go, girls.
Yeah.
Here we go. And then the whole show just came out of that. But yeah, it just wouldn't work for us.
I just like
yeah,
and also I couldn't imagine like us coming out on stage and showing a load of, I'm going, okay, listen boys, we're going to show you how you feel. We know. I don't know. But like I'd love to see it. I'd love to know, because I also think the good thing about Two Clowns One Cup was like I think girls came and girls relate, and also girls learn probably a lot about because it's almost like a second sex education. Like we really go into details. We talk about like penetrative orgasms, clitoral orgasm. Like we really go into those details, and I think we really teach girls like these are the things to explore. This is how you can really explore your body. So I think girls learn stuff. I think boys learn stuff, and I think like it's just really great to have that perspective. So like if someone wanted to go and make Two Clowns One Cup male edition, I'd love to see it. Like go and make it. I think that would be great. It's just not our it's not our journey or story to tell. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I get that. It's you have to be in the right place, right time. I think it would be quite, it's going to be a very different type of show.
Yeah, it'd be
as well, because it's a very different thing.
But I think it'd be hilarious. I'd love to see it.
Amazing. So let's move on to your latest show that you're into rehearsal for.
Yeah.
I remember brief conversations or overhearing brief chats about it back in 2019 at the Fringe. Obviously we're a long way past that, but it's amazing that you guys are into that. So let's chat a little bit about your latest show.
So go on.
Well, I was just going to say with this one, in terms of the actual beginnings, if this is where one of those moments where things lined up. So we'd been given a bit of funding from Slumlow. That was like back that feels like forever ago now. And they were just like, you can make something new. You can come and make it in our little working men's club, and it's so cool there. So we were like, oh my god, we'd love to do that. But we didn't have the idea, and we were maybe we'll develop an existing show. And then one of our friends, and he was an old lecturer at our university. He taught like comedy and that kind of thing, and he was a real supporter for us. He basically told us that he was like dying of terminal cancer, basically, and he said, do you want to come and have a chat with me in the hospice? So we went down to the hospice, and then he was just like, I'd like to commission you for my memorial, please. You could make a 10-minute thing, make it dead funny, and make it you. He's like, because I just think you're all so fun. So we're like, And what do you even do with that? So he was like, do it. Go. He was like, just go.
And we were going like, and he was like, we were like, okay, what do you want? I was like, so he wants a 10-minute piece, ugly bucket piece about death for his memorial. And we'd be going to him like, okay, so what do you want, like this or that? And he was like, I don't know, I won't see it. He was like, I'll be dead.
Wow.
But like, he was like, I want you guys to just do it how you want to do it. He's like, I think it'll be great. So
he had such a way of just being, and he just like, that's what he was like, and just put his faith in you. And then that's what like really took us off as a company as well, is he put the faith in us and went, oh, can you come and do it at John Moore's? You know, back when we were doing like Botion Clues, that and Two Clans, where he was the person that gives you that upper boost. You're actually doing something right here. So then with that, we then made the 10-minute piece for his memorial that was hosted at the university. That was really nice. It was like a short film. And then everything just spiraled, more and more ideas, because you can't fit, once you start with this sort of topic, you're just like, oh my God. And then it really touched a nerve with people that we were mentioning it to, and they were going, well, no one talks about grief, so how are you going to do it? And then we're like, well, now we know that people don't.
Yeah.
We're just going to have to. So that's where everything just lines up, and then all of a sudden we had the space at Sun Low, have the bit of budget, and then we go, let's go for it.
And I feel like Good Grief was a really different type of process for us, because with Boast and Two Clans, we approached people. We would just straight up message people and go, we're doing a show about this, we want to talk about this, do you want to interview with us? And then with Good Grief, me and Rachel really scratching our heads, because we were being like, we have no idea how, like, doesn't feel right approaching people going, oh, I know that you've lost someone, do you want to come talk? It was just, so we were really like, we don't quite know what to do. But like the show was definitely in process, and we were kind of struggling, being like, God, who are we going to speak to? And we were talking to some charities, like we were talking to the Good Grief Trust, and like exploring those avenues. But then, because like I think Ugly Bucket had got to a point where more people knew about us, and I think word got out that we were making the show about grief, people just got in touch with us, and like the most like amazing interviews that we did for Good Grief were people that messaged us and said, I know you're making a show about this, I have to talk about my experience. And that was just like amazing, and like, yeah, and it was such...
It is just mad, like it's something that's so, because this one was the trickiest one to approach in terms of like you said, you can't just go to people, oh, tell me about that really traumatic thing.
And like the way, I think with the interviews, like the show is so visual, Good Grief, and it's only because the way that people talk about grief, it's such a personal thing that you don't have the words for it, because it's so immense, this feeling, and it's so engulfing and overwhelming. The only way that people really can describe it is through visual. So the way that people talk and what they describe to us, like there's this whole section where someone's described grief as feeling like a spaceman on another planet, and then just from that one little snippet of sound, there's like this whole segment in the show where we like go to space, and there's these aliens that they meet. And so like, yeah, it was really like the interviews totally inspired all these incredible little visual moments in the show. And the show feels super cinematic, it feels super epic, it's definitely our most ambitious, and I feel like ambitious in every way, ambitious in like the technical elements that we've done, and we've totally pushed our physicality, we're totally pushing the comedy, and I think we've never treaded that line more of comedy and tragedy. And like, I think we really like as a company to kind of, balance along that line and go and question like what's funny and what's not funny, and how can we push that. And I think like as an audience member watching Good Grief, there's like, it'll make you laugh and it makes you cry, and then there's moments where you don't even know if you should be laughing or crying. And I think that is what is the most exciting thing about Good Grief, is the fact that it's such an experience as an audience, and like there's parts where I don't even know how to feel as a performer, and I think that just like is so interesting and powerful, and like it is like a total roller coaster, like you're totally
I think I think a lot of that kind of came from when we were with the interviewers, like interviewees. We were on a journey with them, because sometimes people don't even necessarily realize where they're at with the grief, and you know, you can be talking about someone from your past who's now died, and you're like, oh yeah, it's fine, I can talk about them. They sit down, start, and then they're actually in a whole other place, and they're like, oh, this is actually way more, you know, sensitive than I thought. Or some people will be like, I've been upset all the time, I'll be able to talk to you about how upset I've been, and then on the day when they're talking to you, they'll be like, well, they were really nice, that was great. So it's just been so interesting to kind of, and then finding what the message in the show has been really interesting, because we didn't know what it was going into it, whereas I think with our other shows we've kind of found a way through it. This felt like we need that, what's the hope here, and where are we going with it, because it is so all consuming as an emotion and as a feeling and experience. We really had to find that, what's that we're rooting for at the end, and that the interviews.
Yeah, and I think we knew from the start that and I think this is something that we've had to really learn, like with all our shows, is that we are not creating an instruction manual for grief. And like I think we faced this kind of battle when we did Bohemian Blues, and because it was like about mental health and we were making it about postgraduate depression, we totally thought we had to solve depression in like an hour. And then I think it was such a penny drop moment when we realised, oh, we don't actually have to do that. And I think learning that from doing Bohemian Blues, and there was also like, you don't have to do that. And I think with Good Grief, there's no right way to grieve, there's no correct way to grieve. All we're doing is presenting these different perspectives. And I think a lot of the time when people are creating social issue theatre, they think they have to solve social issues. And I think sometimes these topics, it's too vast and you literally can't do that. So why like, you know, put yourself under that stress and that pressure? Literally showing the perspectives is enough, because you're telling a story, you're giving a voice, and
your feeling is what we always try and remind ourselves.
Yeah.
Also showing God isn't, and like we said with two clients going, that moment where you go, oh my God, I've had that.
Yeah.
Like my mum came out of Good Grief and went, I felt lonely like that as well. That what she said was exactly what I was going through when my dad died, and I was like, oh God, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
I just think
I don't want to come out going, thank God that grief is solved. That's not
what it is. Yeah, I think we've really learned to not tell but show, and I think like that's something that like if you're creating your own work, I think it's a good lesson to learn. I think it creates more interesting work when you are not telling an audience like how they should feel or how they should think or how they should act. But I think just show the story, just show us, and then let the audience process it, how they're going to process it, and you'll find that it'll probably be what your intention is. But I think show not tell is definitely what we're much better at doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. And you hit the nail on the head. You can't tell anyone how to deal with their grief, because I don't think anyone knows how you're going to react, but it is something that we all go through at some point. But knowing that you're not alone in that, I think for a lot of people would be
that's the bit.
The main, I think that's the thing. Every show that we do, it's about showing like unity, creating unity in our audiences. Is totally, it's like it's a real experience. And I think also because the shows are so intense and high energy, I do think coming to an Ugly Bucket show is such an experience for an audience, because the topic unites you, and then also just going through this like kind of bass filled, high energy, like, oh my God, we're packed into a dark room and it's probably really hot and really sweaty. I think that's a real experience. And I think, I think like being able to create, it definitely creates connection and sparks, like then people having this conversation afterwards is, I think, what it's really all about.
Which is absolutely amazing. So it kind of brings me on to this kind of, obviously you guys are where you are now with this ability to create, as you've said yourselves, this piece of theatre that is on another level again and another step up for you guys. So I just want to kind of talk about for you guys on that fairly rapid rise of, what is it? Is it 4 or 5 years?
2.5 years.
2.5.
Literally, people go, we honestly, we did
I had it as 4 in my head.
We did a thing not long ago where someone said, oh, so tell us about the past 5 years for you. And we went, it's not been 5 years. We were like, it has been like, so it really is
Fringe. It's Edinburgh Fringe 2017 was that your first one? Or was it 2018? Sorry, 2018 was your first Fringe.
No, 2019.
2019.
We did Fringe last year. It's just madness.
I could swear you've been twice.
No.
It's utterly baffled.
It is unreal how like much
2020 being cancelled has thrown me all out of whack.
Yeah, when we say we've not had a day off.
No weekend.
That really does kind of put that into perspective. So even more so for that, for you guys, what have been the kind of platforms, the opportunities that have really kind of you felt have made that difference? Because obviously there are lots of theatre companies who try and get off the ground and try and get somewhere and don't quite make it for whatever reason. And I think if for you guys, what were those real like key platforms, those opportunities that you were like, if it hadn't been for this, it would have really, just stayed as a group?
Honestly, I cannot even stress enough how much that we are only at the place we are. We're only at the place we're at because of help, because other people have pulled us up and other companies have pulled us up. National Student Drama Festival was massive for us, huge turning point. I would recommend anyone, if you're like within the bracket that you can apply, and I feel like I think it's like 5 years after graduate. I don't know, take my word for it, but if you can apply to National Student Drama Festival with a show, what have you got to lose? Literally apply. Then Slunglow have done absolute wonders for us, and we met Slunglow at National Student Drama Festival. Slunglow have just been total have backed us so much and given us so much opportunity wise, and like it really does blow our minds. That
you just can't believe like what they have to give, and they give it, and they're just like please, just like even them giving us that space to build. Good grief, where we just lived, and they have rooms upstairs, so they let us stay over, and we just stayed there for 2 weeks. Come downstairs, rehearse upstairs, and the whole time they've just been so like, we're here if you want us, we're always there to help, and it's your space, you're always welcome, doors are always open. Just to have that as a company is insane. New
Diorama Theatre in London has been huge for us, like their support.
Onto their emerging companies scheme, which was so useful for us in terms of like having that feeling, with coming back to that feeling where you're like, oh my God, we're not on our own, because they do that company scheme thing, had like workshops on producing, and then we realized, oh, we're a self-producing company. So then you can use that then, and when you know that, you then see self-producing company workshop, and you're like, that's what we are. Whereas we didn't know that before meeting New Diorama and them going, this is who you are, you're an emerging company, and this is what this means, and here's how to get better and how to meet other companies that are the same as you or similar. And
I just think, even so, they're like big organizations that really helped us, but even just like old university lecturers, like people that we worked with before, people that we met in uni, like guest people that come in, other practitioners, I feel like anybody like who has been like not above us, but with more experience, we've had so much help, and we've like begged, borrowed and stealed, like totally. Like when we were starting out, we asked all the time, Yeah, and like literally, some of the last advice that Tim gave to us was he was like, don't be. He was like, don't. I think what did he say? He was like, say yes to every venue, every audience, and he was like, don't be afraid to ask. And I think that's massive. I think literally, asking people for help is everything. Just ask people. It's even people ask us now. When we get emails, we get messages where people are like looking for an opportunity or they want to know about arts funding. I'm just so glad that people just ask, because we're so willing and we're so open to do that, and we want to help people in any way we can, because we really want to send. I think it's so important to send the elevator back down. And I think that's really what we've experienced, is those people that have got to a position, they've sent the elevator back down for us and they've brought us back up. And now I think, obviously, I don't think we're not in the same position, but I feel like more and more when we move up, and we're starting to get into a position now where we're like, okay, how can we send that lift back down, and how can we bring those people up, because otherwise we wouldn't be where we are. And I'm sure that the companies before us who have helped us, they're not going to be where they are without those people. And I feel like it's just totally integral to the art community, and it probably doesn't happen as much as it should, which is why I think you have to, it's your responsibility. If you've been helped, you have to help. And I just don't, there's no excuses, I don't think.
I think that's something that you can put right across the board entirely. I think it's we all feel it. I know someone gave me the chance to do that and open doors for me, and I feel that obligated is not quite the right word, but I feel like if I've got the opportunity to help someone else get somewhere, I feel like I should give them that opportunity also.
I think you're just going to be a happier artist. I think it's just it just
not
makes
a
your art
competition.
life happier. You're not in competition, and I think when you eliminate that kind of thought process, that you're not in competition with anyone, I think it just your life becomes just easier. Especially your artistic life.
Because audiences aren't bothered. Audiences
they don't care where you've come from.
Versus that show. They walk into the space, they go, do I enjoy that show?
Yeah.
Love that. Leave. Or they walk in and go, that was a bit rubbish. Leave. Most audiences do not care about company versus company.
But care about the work that you make. Do you like it? Are you happy with it? Do you feel that it's represented? Then make the work, do the work, focus on the work. It's so easy to get sucked into everything else, but I think we have to constantly remind ourselves, especially as we book it grows and we're putting our business brains on, it's so easy to forget about why we're doing this, or are we happy with the work, are we happy with the show, is the show the best that it can be, and if the answer is no, then we need to get our heads in check, because that's it's the most important thing. And sometimes it doesn't feel like it is, especially running a company, especially being a self-producing company. Sometimes I think it's really easy to think that the show maybe is the fifth important thing on the list, but I think we totally have to remind ourselves that every time we go on that stage, that audience is getting the show that we want them to have.
That's your product at the end of the day. That is what you're providing.
Yeah, it's about the experience that you're going to give them. And if an audience miss out on that experience because I don't know, because the admin,
I think that's something that's something for you, that no matter what level you are at, what you put on that stage for that particular night is what
matters.
Group of people see,
that matters.
And that's what they see. And when they walk away, and depending on how their reaction is, and then if they really enjoy it, obviously they're going to tell their mates, more people are going to come see it. If it's not great, they're going to tell their friends, and it's that thing. So I totally agree that regardless of what level you're at, that show is the key thing for it.
Totally.
Touch for you guys, things this, and it's quite interesting, and I know chatting to you guys, and you have a slight unique look on it. How did you guys find the Edinburgh Fringe and the festival in general as a platform and as an experience for you guys as a company?
so I'd like to start as a platform, because that is where we met Kevin from home at Edinburgh Fringe, and we just got, because we were literally doing like emails non-stop the whole time we were there. From like whenever we weren't flyering, we were just sending emails to programmers and reviewers. Obviously no replies, like just no. And then you just have that one little moment where Kevin then messaged like, I saw your show, really enjoyed it. Fancy a coffee? We all go for a coffee. And then he was like, great. And it's those moments when you get someone going, I'm on your side.
Yeah.
And then so that got us that. You
only need that one person. You only need that one person to believe in you and to like what you do, which is Kevin from home, from our Edinburgh Fringe experience, was that person, which has led on to so much for us, like so much we've done with home. So like sometimes it feels, honestly, the Edinburgh Fringe we had an amazing time, and I literally like have PTSD over it, and we had and I had an amazing time, but I look back on it with like the stress.
It's the pressure, and like
pressure. Oh
that is where you go, oh, we are in competition. So everything that we
I have never felt
at the end
more in competition, like literally posters, like thousands of posters. The first thing you do is you walk in. Because I've been to Fringe, I've worked at Fringe for like 7 years before we like went to Fringe, and like when I come as an audience member / like I'm just like front of house, I'm looking at all these posters, going, oh, all these shows to see, oh wow, amazing, oh look at this Fringe progress like that. And as soon as I stepped into Edinburgh as a company with a show, it was like a horror film. It was like horror. Like, look at all these. I'm in competition with all these people.
You want to cover them all. You want
that poster looks good. That poster. And honestly, it's the hardest thing we've ever done was doing Edinburgh Fringe. And it's the hard. Like, if you're a theatre company, and like no matter what you do, the Edinburgh Fringe will be the hardest thing you ever do if you go and do it, because it's totally stress draining. And like it's even when it's great, and like we sold out across 2 weeks, and we found it stressful and hard. And so like so then we were saying, what about the companies where you're also putting in the same amount of work, and like you're not getting people coming into your show? It really
hurts to think that people can go put in as much effort as we did, have a show just as amazing, and then people don't come, and that literally breaks my heart, because I'm like, we were just lucky, and I know that we were lucky in that sense, and we kind of had a nice build up to it, that then it all kept going, and we were so lucky. But it's just like, it's just so horrible to think that people wouldn't.
I think it's quite,
you can't put your self-worth onto it, because that is where it's so dangerous, where you're like, if I don't sell out, I must be awful, or they're selling out, therefore they're great. No.
And you see people do that. People do that. And also I think it's a little bit it's quite like, I think also like working at it, you see people that Edinburgh Fringe kind of sells this like dream, and I think it's not a reality. It's just not.
It's a very, very narrow dream.
Yeah. And like,
there are very, very few companies who will get to that point and go from there. I think obviously myself and Grace have worked for the same company for a number of years now, and and I would say your show was massively successful and you did really well. I mean, you couldn't get a ticket to it. You were constantly coming to us asking, can we squeeze people in? Where can we fit extra people? And we'll absolutely do that. I was involved in one show at the Fringe where I had a financial interest in it, and it was the most stressful thing of my life. I didn't speak to one of my best friends for a year afterwards, because we fell out afterwards because of everything. So it became a massive kind of thing. But it's such a narrow potential margin. I would say in the time, the company we've worked for, I'd say 2 companies have achieved what you would say is that dream of moving from a venue where you guys were onto one of the big 4 and big players. And that's one out of, and we have 120 shows at our venue every year.
Exactly. I've worked a show. It was a couple of years before we went, and I was literally just doing some tech on it, and it was so so horrible. Like because you just go in every day to perform it to two, three people because it wasn't, and it was a relatively big space, really, where we were, and you're just like and then you're hearing how much money people have spent on it, and that,
oh my God,
like,
it's like,
I think the platform is there, like there is the
Yeah.
potential for that, but I think the work to get into that, you have to be prepared to absolutely run.
I think it's just when you really think about how narrow, like you're saying, how narrow that margin is. So like, yeah, the platform is there, and if it goes right for you, where like it is like that is so difficult, but if it goes right, you might get, you know, something out of it, and it might blow up for you. But when you compare that narrow margin with, I mean, Fringe is disgustingly expensive. It's gross. It's outrageous how much money people pay.
It's actually, when you think about it, potentially it's not the show itself that is the really costly bit, and the Fringe and
It's
your
not.
registration with the Fringe and stuff like that isn't hugely expensive for what it is. It's everything associated around it.
Yeah,
everything.
It's ridiculous.
You have to live in Edinburgh, which is literally, isn't it the most expensive place to live in the whole UK or something?
Outside London.
Outside of London, yeah.
I mean, I live in Edinburgh currently as well, so I'm well aware of that. But it's so yeah, outside of London, but there is no London waiting. And then when you hit Fringe time, I mean, the room I rent in my digs here is worth in excess of 400 quid a week during Fringe time, and it's
what
just
the hell?
It's just and like we had to like come like, so you've got that narrow margin. You could get something out of it. Your chances are that you probably won't get that much. I mean, we did well, and like we got like one good contact, and we messaged hundreds and hundreds of people to come and see the show, like hundreds. And so, and then you spent all that money, and like and people that can go every year, it's not accessible. It's just not accessible. So I'm like,
you have to look at what you're really trying to get out of why you're going to the
Fringe.
Fringe.
Biggest problem with the Fringe is people not going for the right reasons. And I think if anyone's listening to it and you're a company and you're thinking about why am I going to the Edinburgh Fringe, if it's just to take a show to the Edinburgh Fringe, it is not worth the money. It's not worth the money.
Not at all.
But if you're going because you either want to get a tour out of it, you want to raise your profile, you want to reach new audiences, I mean, that's all fine, but you've just got to know, if you just want to go and experience the Edinburgh Fringe, that is too much money. It's too much money. I think so many people go for that reason, and they there's like these horror stories about how people have raised money or what they've spent, or what it's like student loans, and it's just like, it's not worth that. It's not worth that.
No, like you've absolutely got to go to that. It's when you go with a target in mind of what you're there to achieve, and that's what you're there for. I look back at the time I was involved in the show. I went, I don't even think we even thought about that. It started out as just a thing of we applied for some rights to a show, and then that was that. And next thing I know, I've got a 30 grand budget of a show that we.
It's an absolute beast. And going as a company, it's really easy to fit. I think someone once described it as like a slaughterhouse, like Edinburgh Fringe, and like all the companies are just meat. You just meat on hooks, and then people just and it does feel like that. It's like, and if it goes great. We had a great time, and I look back like on it like kind of awfully, even though it was like amazing.
I think the companies who have a good time are the ones who have got that clear goal in mind of what they're there for.
Yeah, so like some programmers we'd been in touch with months and months before, and made them know that we were at Edinburgh. So then we already knew there were going to be people at the show who could program in the future. So we're like, if we get nothing out of this, they've at least seen us do this. Like they've seen a show that maybe they wouldn't have done before, because that's what it is really. If you're going, you need to use it as that's where the programmers are, that's where the reviewers are.
Yeah.
So, and just get those quotes from reviews. That's what you're getting out.
As long as you just know what you're going for.
Yeah. Do your homework and accept that it's going to be expensive. It's just the unfortunate nature that it is.
Don't expect a profit. You won't make profit. Like no one makes
yeah.
profit. Hardly anybody makes profit. So
I was looking at it, but yeah. So I think it's having been in Edinburgh during August this year, obviously with everything being cancelled. I think the city might have changed its mind on quite how important the festival is to it. It was dead. It was disgustingly dead, and the amount of places that have gone out of business because they've not had that
because of that
footfall has been quite large. And because there's now no Christmas market or Hogmanay, it's even worse. So I think it'll be very interesting next year when it comes around. Would you guys do it again?
Yes. Yeah. We would do it.
Or were
again.
you to do it again?
We would.
That's what I was like, I'm like,
or were you booked in 2020? Should I say?
Yeah, we were meant to be there in 2020. And then if we did it again, I think we said last year we wouldn't do it again. We couldn't do it every year. There's no way we could do it every year. And I think, like we said, if we were going to do it again, it would have to be like with help or I think we'd have to really reevaluate like what
your aim is,
or like what. It's just
because then it's like if you're doing well, do you need to go? Is it worth the stress? Go as a company on a trip for to watch some shows, but don't put yourself through the stress if you don't need to, or the financial burden. Yes.
Yeah, we were meant to be there last year, so if it goes on next year, we should be there. But I feel like there's still even now like a big question mark over Fringe next year.
Hence our ambiguousness.
Yeah, we're quite like, I don't know.
So we ask everyone on the podcast these same 3 questions. They're a little bit random and they're turning out to be more difficult than I thought they'd be. Okay. But hey ho, it just kind of is what it is. If you had a dream show that you could work on, that you could produce or to be involved with, or a company or an artist, what's your dream show to be involved with?
A dream show to be involved?
Yeah, so like if you had one... What was that?
Good grief.
Good grief.
That's
you could absolutely say yourself. Absolutely fine.
I don't know about show, but company. I don't know. I've got one, Rachel. If you,
is it somebody else's? Is that what we'll go? Is that you?
It doesn't have to be. It could entirely be your own. If that's if your dream is to have your own show and to hit. So I was chatting to someone this morning. His dream wasn't a show, but was to. I've got to work Madison Square Garden. Don't care what it is, where it is. I've got to be involved in a show at Madison Square Garden. So it could literally be, what is that dream place you've got to get to? That could be artist, venue, whatever it is you want to do, kind of thing.
Go on, Grace has got an answer.
I was just gonna say in like company, like I love Spy Monkey, and I feel like I saw a Spy Monkey show when I was in school, like GCSE. And I feel like it really changed everything that I thought about theatre. And like, I just think they're just so cool. And and I think having like watched them for like years, if there was like time, like an opportunity to like collab with like, I don't know, another company, I just think that'd be just so like, what? I just love them. I think like the comedy is hilarious and like their style. And I think they're really ballsy, and I've always loved that. In terms of like dream, I have no idea what like the show is or what, but I feel like I said to Rachel, I'm like, one day I just want to do because when we did the Good Grief auditions, we had like how many people? I don't know how many people in the room, like 30 odd people in the room, and we only had place for like 2 people out of those people that came to audition, and the standard was just outrageous. Like people were incredible, and I said to Rachel then, I was like, God, wouldn't it be amazing just one day to do a show with an ugly bucket show with a cast of like 30? It'd just be like, imagine like how it just, because the shows are so high energy and mad anyway, I'm just like in my head, I'm like, imagine that with like a huge chorus of people. I just think it'd be so cool. But that would probably be a long way in the future and probably a technical nightmare. But like, how cool would it be to like have like tons of people in an ugly bucket show? It just feel immense.
I'd love to do some big, like, mad, ridiculously extravagant drag show. How fun would it be? Like a big, like that's so precise and like high end, top notch. I'd love something like that. And then totally on the other end, I've been working with 20 Stories High, and that company are just incredible. They're like a community based, just making work that like is right for the young people that are kind of like in this community, and I just love stuff like that. So I feel pretty blessed, to be honest, because yeah, Good Grief is the one. That's the show.
We're living the dream. We're doing our dream.
There you go. Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it's like I love just like I've been through grief, and then making the show with it, and like there's some audio from my mum and dad in it that's just so real and honest that's just like, this is what I want from theatre, just like proper honest conversations. So
Amazing.
Maybe a Greek tragedy one day. We love the drama.
We've talked
a lot about Greek tragedy, and just, oh God, there's the drama in it. Oh, we'd love to do a Christmas show. That is a dream. I would love one day. So if anybody's listening and wants like an alternative Christmas show for their venue, I just think it's something that we'd love to do one day. I'd love to do like Ugly Bucket does Nativity, or I don't even know. But I just think I'd love to do like an alternative kind of, not a panto, but do you know what I mean? Like a Christmas show.
Yeah.
I just think that'd be boss. I'd love to do that one day.
There's loads.
You've opened
the floodgates.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm like, now my brain's like, there's
Going.
But I'm not.
Amazing. But that's amazing. The fact as well, I love the fact that for you guys, it's your idea of where you want to get to is the future of your company, that you're already there, that there's that kind of idea in that pathway, which is great. This one is very random, and it always intrigues me to answers, just because it's quite funny. What is, after a show, what's your go-to snack? What is that one thing after a show that you go for? I've had answers like Mackey's. Erin from Glasgow was pickled onion Monster Munch.
You love pickled onion Monster Munch.
I thought you love them.
No, I like flaming hot Monster Munch.
I mean, I'm
definitely
partial to pickled onion Monster Munch. I don't know. It's, for me, it's sugar, because honestly, because I get quite nervy. I'm a real fiend for not eating or drinking like water before a show, and then the shows are like so high energy and sweat that when it's done, I am on the verge of fainting. I'm just gonna collapse. So I think probably I normally will always have just a double decker somewhere on me at probably all times.
Amazing.
So probably a double decker.
I find Mao everywhere, so don't worry. I emptied my toolbox from March, like literally a month ago, and there were still bags of Mao sat in the top of it. So that kind of answers that question. But yeah, there is always that, like a lot of people, there is just that one thing that's what
Probably
it is.
Yeah.
True. So last question, and this one's kind of, we may have covered it already, but I think it's just always a nice way to kind of end it. If there's one piece of advice that you could give yourself when you were first starting out, that you obviously know now, what would that be? Or that you could give to someone starting out their career today? That one piece of advice that you go, I wish I knew that on day one.
I think mine would be trust in yourself, because I was really bad at being like, because you're so early on, and then you're comparing yourself to comparing as well as a massive one, but you're so starting off comparing yourself to other people and being like, I'm not doing it like that, I'm not very good because I'm not doing it like that, and just like you are good enough. Like, that's, if you're passionate about the work, that's all that matters.
My advice would be, and it's advice that that I heard from Alan at Slunglow one year, was I think it's more about if you're setting up a company, if you're starting out and you want to start a company, is that the world doesn't need another theatre company. So I think too often when people are setting up a theatre company, people kind of, so I know some people, they put together a company before they've even got a show idea, and then and then they make the logo and the name, and they do the Facebook page, and they make a website, and then at some point they'll sit around the table and go, does anybody have any show ideas? And really, the world doesn't need that, but what the world needs is the show that you're going to make. What show are you going to make? Like, why is it important? Why do you have to do it now? And make that show. That your brand, the company, the bar, you know, the logo, it'll all come later if you put everything that you've got into the show that you present. Like we were talking about, the audience, what are the audience going to see? What's the experience you want them to have? Let that lead you into your name and your, I don't know, it'll all come, that stuff will come. Let it happen organically. But I think too often I feel like I see too many like people graduate and then put together a company straight away and don't make a show. Don't think about a show, or don't make a show. Do it, make a show, make the show that you think the world needs, and do it in whatever way you can, and put it on in any way you can, and then everything else will just follow. Everything else will just happen.
And I'd say stick with people that you admire and that challenge you and help you get better, because that's always really good as well.
Amazing. I think it's a great way to kind of an advice to end on for anyone out there at all, really. Guys, it has been an absolute pleasure chatting to you.
Thanks so much for having us.
That's no problem at all. It's been great. Obviously, we will fire all of your social media links and everything in descriptions and information. So definitely we'll get everyone we can to go check it out.
Boss, thanks.
Thank you.
No worries.
Have a lovely evening.
Thank you for listening to the Stage Is Yours podcast. Want to know more? Then head over to all of our socials. You can find us at Stage Is Yours Pod, where you can catch a cheeky glimpse at some of our upcoming guests, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to make sure that you never miss an episode. This has been the Stage Is Yours podcast, talking all things theatre and events. Until next time.